Good morning, GasBuddy users. Hey, great to be with you. I'm coming from Denver live today. I'm at the PDI 2023 Users Conference. I wanted to give you a brief update on gas prices. Obviously, Labor Day is right around the corner. Today is Wednesday. You're probably getting close to hitting the road. A lot of Americans are going to be doing just that. So I wanted to cover what's up at the pump today. There's been a lot of talk about gas prices. Obviously, Hurricane Idalia is out hitting Florida today. Hopefully everyone down there is staying safe. And of course, there are some outages at gas stations across Florida. So if you have any loved ones, we're going to cover some outages and what you can expect in Florida after Idalia passes. And then we're going to talk a little bit about gas prices after Labor Day. So we're going to cover it all. Let's start first with our forecast for Labor Day weekend. GasBuddy anticipates that gas prices in most areas should continue to decline. For the first time in 7 weeks, the national average has been declining. That's the good news. But for the West Coast, it's not such great news. In fact, gas prices in California, Nevada, Arizona, Oregon, and Washington have been going up. So a little bit of a mixed bag. If you're east of the Rockies, you've been seeing prices moderate. That's a trend that should continue. Ohio, I know you saw prices jump up yesterday, but that should be pretty short-lived. Prices in most areas, again, east of the Rockies will be moderating. That's the good news. So if you're in a rush to fill up, well, don't be, because prices should be inching down in most areas of the country. Now, when it comes to Hurricane Idalia, that's not going to have any impact on what you're paying at the pump. That's the good news. A lot of the reason for that is Hurricane Idalia is not affecting any refineries. Those refineries in Louisiana and Texas obviously are pretty far away from Hurricane Idalia's path. Now, there are some other areas of interest that we will be watching out in the Atlantic, so keep an eye. There could be other storms that do develop in the weeks ahead. But for Labor Day, pretty smooth sailing with gas prices declining. The good news is then by the time we get to mid-September, most areas of the country are going to be switching off of that summer blend of gasoline. You probably heard all about summer and winter blends of gasoline. The good news is that September 16th is the first day that most areas of the country can make the switch back to winter gasoline, and with it, there's going to be a nice decrease in prices. Now, that decrease in prices is going to be bigger in some of the major cities like Chicago, St. Louis, Dallas, much of the Northeast, Boston, and New York. The reason those big cities are going to see a bigger decrease is because they have to use a more stringent type of summer gasoline. So good news is relief is coming for a lot of folks. But again, if you're west of the Rockies, you'll probably see price increases. That is also because there have been some refinery snags. One refinery in Southern California that's affecting the West Coast. There have been a couple refinery snags in Texas, and that's affecting gas prices in Arizona. If you're in Tucson, you've seen prices jump 20 cents a gallon in the last week. Arizona is up about 6 cents. But again, if you're east of the Rockies, it's pretty smooth sailing. Areas of Texas have seen prices fall 10 cents a gallon in the last week. The Great Lakes, with the exception of Ohio, have seen gas prices declining, and that's going to be the trend. Remember, if you're hitting the road for Labor Day, fire up that GasBuddy app, find those lower prices, especially if you're going to be crossing a state line. That's where gas prices can be much more volatile, especially Illinois. So if you're somebody like me from Chicago, if you're heading out of the state, that's where the cheaper gas prices are. Now, going back to Hurricane Idalia, as I mentioned, we are seeing some disruptions in Florida. There are a low level of stations without fuel, but the good news is those numbers are pretty low. I think right now Gainesville is leading. About 5% of stations in Gainesville are currently without gasoline. Some of the numbers, 2.5% in Tampa, a low level of outages in Orlando as well. But the good news is those numbers are really low across most of Florida. And once Idalia gets out of the region, those ports are going to reopen. Port of Savannah, Port Tampa, a lot of that facility will reopen, and then the flow of gasoline will start again. So for those of you in Florida, again, hopefully you're safe, but the flow of gasoline will start to continue again. And for Labor Day, as I mentioned, very good news for most Americans that we'll see prices declining. By the end of the year, if everything goes well, it's good news really for everyone. By Thanksgiving, the national average could fall 25 to as much as 50 cents a gallon. And we may see some of those low price states like Texas, Missouri, Mississippi, Alabama, you may see prices fall under $3 a gallon at some stations in those areas. And again, a lot of that has to do with lower demand in the fall. Most schools are reopened. Americans aren't going to be traveling as much with the exception of Labor Day, and that puts downward pressure on prices. And then, as I mentioned, in mid-September, we go back to cheaper winter gasoline. So usually those two cause prices to fall in the fall, just like how gas prices go up in the spring for the opposite reasons. Demand goes up and we switch to more expensive summer gasoline in the spring. So keep in mind, fall is typically a time of falling prices. For now, that's your travel update. Stay safe out there. Use your Pay with GasBuddy card. That can save you up to 25 cents a gallon. If you don't have it, sign up today at pay.gasbuddy.com. But again, overall good news for Labor Day. Prices moderating east of the Rockies, inching up a little bit on the West Coast. But in the next few weeks, most areas will see declining prices. And again, Hurricane Idalia not affecting prices in any way because it's not affecting refineries. We keep an eye on the tropics, the Atlantic, still some areas of interest that could eventually cause some disruption. Oil prices have been under a little bit of pressure because of China's economic concerns. The price of oil at about $80 a barrel, and that may see some improvement in the weeks ahead as well. So for now, live from the PDI Users Conference, I'm Patrick De Haan, the head of petroleum analysis. Have a great and safe Labor Day holiday weekend.